booties for black girl nerds.
Katori, I'm very excited to talk to you because, well, for one, the series is well done. I've seen the first 4 episodes and I watched them back to back to back to back to back. I didn't spread them out. So I binge watched the first 4 in a 4-hour block. And
Wow.
wow, I feel so much more educated on something I really thought I knew a lot about. I mean, I'm not a dancer, but I live in Los Angeles. I have Southern parents, so strip club culture is not so foreign to me,
Yep.
but just the layers of the storytelling with these characters and how invested I found myself in them so early on was fascinating.
I love to hear that. That's great.
So I wanted to start with, I know that you said this series took 6 years for you to research and development. What was that spark?
10. I'm gonna say it was 10 years, but well, I'll tell you about it.
Well, what was that day? You know, we sometimes we wake up and we find ourselves like, I think I want to accomplish this goal, and we start out. What was that moment that sparked that? I want to tell a story about Southern strip club culture that kind of just started the ball rolling for you.
Absolutely. So I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. So Southern girl through and through. And I actually went to strip clubs all the time. You know, it was, part of my coming of age experience being a Black Southern girl, so there were so many celebrations that we had there. And I would like go into that space and be just hit with the images of these women flying around on these poles like they were super heroes. I mean, I was impressed by the athleticism and the craft. Like they were putting on this theatrical experience. So I had the nerve to try and take a pole dancing class myself. Yes. And
Bless
why I
you.
did that for? I don't know why I did that for. Because I learned real quick that I was never going to be able to do what they could do. I was never going to be able to pull my tail up on that pole. I was never going to be able to be upside down. It made me have so much respect for these women and the craft of exotic dancing. And so that was the day that I learned for myself that I couldn't do it. That's when I decided that I was going to do this show that my little man has broken in.
Oh, he's cute. He can stay.
You want to say hey to my friends?
Hi. You're so handsome.
No. I'm gonna do my interview and then I'm gonna come and get you. He's like, no, I'm staying.
Are you, is he, how old is your younger man there?
How old are you? You gonna tell her? How old are you?
No.
Pop? Yeah,
Three. Oh, that's such a good age.
Papa's asking for you. Now he's like, okay, let me go to Papa.
Yeah, I have learned, mine is now 16, and I have learned in my experience that when you start asking them questions, they're like, I'm out. That was a flashback to mine was about that age right here.
Oh, I was about to ask you about your wall. Your picture.
I know. Some of these came about, you love kids and you have to keep their artwork. And so she told me once, why don't you ever put anything that I drew in your background for your interviews? I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right.
Uh-oh. What was I? Oh yes. So it was when I tried to do it myself. That was the day that I was like, I want to write about this world. I want to write about the art of the dance. But the people who are doing this are these incredibly complicated women. And so I ended up for those 6 years going to all these strip clubs all across the nation, from Sin City in the Bronx to Magic City down in Atlanta. I interviewed over 40 women. I really wanted to make sure that I was, learning about the reasons as to why these women decided to embark on this profession. And all of that culminated into the play Pussy Valley. And I remember we put it up in 2015, and I very quickly realized, like, oh my God, this is not a play, this is a TV show, because there was so much to say. There were so many stories to tell. I could see the world and the characters, the 10 years from that point. And so that's when I decided like that was going to be the play version. Was going to be a jumping off point and an inspiration for me to create an actual TV show. So from then, it took me 4 more years, and that's why I always say it's actually like a decades long journey. It's an odyssey. It took me 4 years to adapt it from a play into a television show, and it was such a challenging process, because to just go from theater to TV production, it's just like a huge jump. But I'm really happy that STARZ took the jump of faith with me and allowed me to run my first TV show.
I was amazed at how quick I got so invested in the characters. One kind of like my little trick when I'm going to watch something to interview is how quick I can remember the character names in the show. And when I'm not very invested, I'll find myself like, what's that person's name again? Let me look them up. I can't remember that. But by the end of the first episode, I clearly knew all the characters' names, and there are a lot of characters in the show. And what was particularly pleasing to me is just the depth of which you explored them, that they were just so much more than their bodies, their faces, their reasons for being there, the way they love, the way they laugh, and there was just so much more to them than that. How did you decide how deep you wanted to go into the stories? Because after seeing 4 episodes, I can kind of see the offshoot that the seeds have been planted for pretty much all of the cast now to go in a lot of different directions. How did you, weigh how deep you wanted to go with some of them, all of them, etc.?
I actually feel as though everyone gets their turn in the spotlight. You need each and one of these characters in order for the house to stand. I would say that this is a family, of friends that happen to be family as well, and this sprawling ensemble is really needed so that we can kind of understand like all of the different levels of the strip club world. And so in terms of like the layers, I'm like, we just got to do good writing, y'all. I would just tell my writer's room, like, in order for people to be invested, we got to make sure that they're just not a pretty face, or they're just not like, this hyper masculine homeboy rolling up in the club. Like, we see that. And we very quickly move past that, and I think that's what makes the characters so impactful, is that we always kind of like present the surface and very quickly start peeling away the onion layers, so that people can realize like, oh, this homeboy, he's just like my brother. Like, oh my God, this girl up on the pole, she's actually similar to my daughter. It's a very humanizing portrayal of all the people who come inside of the club, whether they're dancing or whether they're paying for the dance. And I feel like it's my responsibility as a Black woman to always be crafting characters that are incredibly complex, because I know that I am pushing up against a very big inheritance of very stereotypical images. And so I wanted to make sure that we, especially since we are stepping into very kind of risque territory, to make sure the characters that are inside of that space feel like real flesh and blood human beings.
With those real flesh and blood IDs, that's what I also appreciate, that they were just sort of normalized, and as we see, dancers are just like any other job where you need ID and you need to pay your taxes, and you have to be on point of the accounting aspects of your job, like any other career. Why do you think dancers are still kind of stigmatized?
I think
for as liberal as it's gotten, it's still like, oh, you're a dancer.
It's like, let me, like, you nasty if you a dancer.
And you must be a pervert and a whore, if you're a dancer.
we know that's not the case. I think it has a lot to do with how pervasive sexism is. I think it has a lot to do with how pervasive anti-blackness is and misogynoir. The fact that this series focuses like we have Gidget, but we're really kind of focusing on Black women, and we are marginalized and within the world of Black women. Oftentimes we even shame other Black women who are doing this work. So I feel as though it was so important to me to create a space where these women were given a platform so that their story could be told with nuance, because that's the thing about storytelling. It is a powerful tool against racism. It is a powerful tool against sexism. It when you don't see a person, you don't think that they exist. And this population is incredibly vulnerable. And so the fact that we are using a worldwide platform to give these women their story, shows that their lives are important, because we feel like all Black lives matter. Right. It don't matter if you in the palace or on the pole, we gonna tell your story.
Because neither of which can stop you from being stopped at any time, whether you're the lawyer or the janitor.
Absolutely.
I also liked what Uncle Clifford was just everything to me, because I have a cousin that reminds me greatly of Uncle Clifford and lives a similar lifestyle, flamboyant, colorful, a truth teller, a empathizing heart, just kind of like a nucleus that keeps everybody centered and grounded. Tell me about your relationship with Nico and crafting that character and just really making the platform for Nico to shine.
Absolutely. So Nico has been working on Uncle Clifford since page 1. I remember we were both living in New York City, and I had invited people over to my apartment. I was like, I'm working on this new play. Nico, can you read the first 5 pages? And he came over, and from that moment on, I was like, oh my gosh, he is the voice of this character. Uncle Clifford is based on 3 people in my life. My mom, my dad, and my Uncle Clifford. And so to be able to work with someone who understood how special that character was to me, and how personal the character was for me, was just a dream come true, because I knew that he was going to take care of the character. And so I continued to pump out the pages, and eventually many years later he ended up being the actor who brought Uncle Clifford to life on stage at Mixed Blood Theater in Minneapolis. And I even think he won an award for it, if I'm remembering correctly. Like, he just was absolutely stunning in the role. But in regional theater, not everyone gets a chance to see it. And so I was so happy that I was able to develop it into a TV show where he was able to continue working on the role. Like, he has been inside of this character, using his skin, his lived experience, to help me bring this character to life. As a matter of fact, I don't think Uncle Clifford would be as amazing as she is if it weren't for Nico stepping into her shoes.
And lastly, before we wrap, thank you for your depiction of Black men who are cisgendered, who are just not completely toxic people. There are so many examples in our Black women, I'm sure, in their own personal lives, of cisgendered Black men who are not super duper toxic and misogynistic. Like, I can't remember the bouncer's name, the bouncer in the club.
Diamond, yeah.
He represented just, your uncle, your brother, your homeboy who was in English next to you in 9th grade, who is very manly, but not just heavy-handed with his masculinity. Why the choice to put him in that kind of like a catalyst at the door for that character?
He's a protector. You know, he's a lover, and he'll fight when he needs to, but he's more of a lover than a fighter. And I agree. I think we don't get an opportunity to see Black men taking care of Black women. And I really felt it was so important to see this beautiful man being played by Tyler Lepley. Like, my mama was like, "Oh my God, Benny in your show," because she knows him from the
He is fine. He is fine. Yes, he is.
I'm like, "Yes, Benny is in my show, Mom." But Tyler himself is like, he's a father. He is a beautiful soul. He's hardworking, and I really wanted him to play this role. I felt like he was completely perfect for it. Diamond doesn't say that much, but you can tell that he loves and cares about these women and about his job and about the club, and in particular, he cares very deeply about Miss Mississippi. And so I'm really excited to see the audience response when it comes to that possible relationship between him and Keyshawn, because I really feel as though there's some magnetism there, I would say.
I agree. Thank you, Katori. You are lovely. Thank you for your project. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking to you and your little handsome guy. Can't wait for the premiere, and I hope we get to talk again soon.
I hope so too. I love you guys. I read you guys all the time. So
thank you so much. I'll let Jamie know. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Better shake your booties for Black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for Black girl nerves.